So today we are going to fake it till we make it, because I'm talking about romance recommendations that feature fake dating or fake relationships in general. So this is my absolute favourite trope. I love it when two people have to spend time together under the pretext of pretending to be together, pretending to like each other, and then actually discovering that they really do like each other, do really have feelings for each other, and end up with a HEA. As a result, this is the second romance recommendation video I've done with the theme of fake dating, and I will put a link to the first one that I did about 18 months ago in the description box down below if you want to check that out as well. Also, when I went through these, I was very amused to find out that the majority of these are actually sports romances as well, but I do have a couple of mafia romances in here, so stay tuned for those. So the first book I want to talk about is The Right Move by Liz Tomforde. This is book 1 in her Windy City series, and we are following Ryan and Indy. It's a sports romance. Our hero is a basketball player, and this is also a close proximity because they end up being roommates, and it's also Ryan's sister's best friend, or if you think about it the other way, best friend's brother. So like I said, we have Ryan and Indy. Now, in book 1 in this series, we met both of these characters. Ryan is the twin brother of the heroine from book 1, and Indy, like I say, is her best friend. She is a flight attendant for the ice hockey team, and when she got back from work one time, she arrived early. Her boyfriend wasn't expecting her, and she walked in on him having sex with another woman, and so of course she ended that relationship. So at the start of this book, it's where she has recently broken up with her ex-boyfriend and needs somewhere to live. Now, because in the book 1, Ryan's sister has recently moved out. She was living with him, but has recently moved out to live with her new boyfriend. Ryan kind of has a spare room, and so his sister says to him, hey, you know, my best friend Indy is really looking for a place, can she move in with you? And at first Ryan sort of says no, because he really loves his sort of privacy, his quiet time, but he will do anything for his sister and agrees that Indy can move in with him. And then Indy is a whirlwind in his life. She literally comes in like a typhoon, creating havoc in his personal space. Ryan is basically determined that he's not going to enter into a relationship. In fact, he's been celibate for a long time. This is mainly because he is a very talented basketball player, extremely well paid. He has been hurt before in the past, and he really wants to keep his reputation squeaky clean, wants to just focus on the basketball, doesn't want any issues in the press, doesn't want to be tricked by women, or any of that sort of stuff. So he very much spends most of his time completely focused on basketball and being the best that he can be. However, all work and no play makes Johnny a very dull boy, as they say, and the kind of like the manager of the basketball team sort of says to Ryan, you know, you're absolutely great at what you do, but I want you to be captain of the team, but you need to be really more relatable to, you know, the rest of the guys on the team. I think you're just too focused on basketball. People are too intimidated by you, and you need to kind of like loosen up a little bit. It'll be great to see you maybe with a woman. And so he kind of like realizes that Indy can solve a bit of a problem for him, and in fact he can solve one for Indy, because she's still sort of friends in a similar friendship group with her ex-boyfriend. A wedding is coming up with one of her best friends, and she's going to need to go to this wedding, and her ex is going to be there, and so they're kind of both in need now of a date. Indy needs a date to go with her to the wedding, and Ryan needs a date to kind of placate his kind of manager, and so they kind of agree that they are going to start sort of fake dating, if you like, to help each other out. This doesn't last too long though before they start to get feelings for each other. The fake dating turns into real dating, obviously. Of course, there are going to be some things that they need to work out, but eventually they do get their HEA. And I have to say that Ryan Shea is an absolutely fantastic character. He's definitely up there as one of my book boyfriends. He treats Indy so well, and he does it through the small things. He's very thoughtful and does some really thoughtful small things that make this book and this character absolutely fantastic. I would highly recommend. Next up then we have The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer, and this is book 2 in the Vancouver Storm series. We are following Rory and Hazel. This is another sports romance, but this one is about ice hockey. It's also friends to lovers. There's some care taken in here, and also what I loved about this one is there's no third act conflict or third act breakup, which I very much appreciated. So in this one, like I say, we have Rory and Hazel. Now, Rory is the ice hockey player. They play in a professional team. This is not college. And Hazel is kind of like one of the sports physios, like a physiotherapist in the team. So she spends a lot of time in the team. Now, she knew Rory at school. So Rory and Hazel used to go to school together. She tutored him for a bit. Rory's always had a bit of a thing for Hazel, but they never went out. Instead, she was going out with a complete and utter douche during high school and even into college, who was also an ice hockey player. She really, really loved him, but he treated her terribly and eventually broke up with her in the most embarrassing way, and was just really mean to her in front of all her friends, and kind of just, you know, broke her heart completely. As a result, she is very commitment shy now. She doesn't want to get involved with a man long term, and instead kind of, you know, just kind of has a lot of one night stands with different men, but doesn't want to get too close. Rory secretly, you know, fancies Hazel, wants to be with her. Hazel is not interested in anything permanent, and they're just basically friends and obviously work together as well. Until, of course, the ex-boyfriend, the douche that I talked about, eventually is signed to the same team as them. And now this causes some difficulties for Hazel, because the ex-boyfriend is just a complete and utter tool and is just so obnoxious and basically really makes her feel uncomfortable in her own workplace. Rory sees this and decides he's going to step in and kind of help her protect herself, protect her from the ex-boyfriend, by pretending that they are in a relationship together. And so Hazel agrees that they're going to then fake date to keep the ex-boyfriend off her case, and to just give her a little bit of a barrier, if you like, a little bit of protection from some of the snide comments that he's making. Of course, then it means that they're going to spend some more time together, going to go on dates together, and also while they're on the road, Rory and the ex-boyfriend have to share hotels rooms with each other. So then they enact these funny scenes where they pretend to have phone sex and stuff like that, so to really, really piss the ex-boyfriend off. But of course, they're going to have great chemistry together. As they get to spend more time with each other, get to know each other more, they're going to basically start to develop more feelings for each other, and eventually things are going to go from there. So like I say, I really, really did like this one. Another one where they just have such a great time together, and I was smiling throughout. Then, of course, you won't be surprised to see this one in here, The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is one of my favourite reads of the year so far, and also Garrett Graham, who is the hero in this one, is also another one of my top book boyfriends. So this is book one in the off-campus series. Like I said, it's another sports romance. It's ice hockey romance. This time they're in college. Garrett Graham is a fantastic ice hockey player though, and he is absolutely going to turn professional, no questions asked. But in order to keep playing ice hockey, he needs to make sure that his grade point average stays above the required threshold, shall we say. And he's not doing too well in one of his classes, but he knows a girl who is, and that is Hannah. So Garrett basically asks Hannah if she will help him in the class, tutor him and help him pass his class. And at first Hannah turns him down and says no, absolutely not, because I just don't have time. I got a full class schedule, I also work, I've got loads of shit going on, don't have time to help you. And she very much perceives him as a bit of a jock, and is not interested. However, Garrett is not going to give up, and he starts to you know, learn more about Hannah, figure out who she is, see if he can you know, find a way to persuade her to help him. And then he notices that she seems to have a crush on this football player, and he sort of says, you know what, we can help each other out here. If you tutor me. And she's like, oh no, not this again. He's like, no, bear with me, let me explain. If you agree to be my tutor and help me through this class, I will help you get a date with that guy that you really, really like. Because basically, if you date me, I am so popular around college and everything that your reputation will go up, this guy will notice you, and you'll definitely get a date with this guy. And she's like, are you serious? You think you're so popular that my popularity will go up just because I'm with you? And he's like, absolutely. And so she agrees to this fake dating relationship, to this deal where they're going to fake date to get her popularity up so she can date this football player, and she's going to help him in class. Of course, then they're going to spend more time together. They're going to go out on dates together, but also spend time alone in his room as she's basically helping him with the class. And she's going to learn that there's more to him than first met the eye. He is a very good looking guy, obviously. They're going to have some great chemistry together. But he starts to learn more about Hannah as well, and she's not had a great past. Some trauma has happened in her life that she's really struggling with, and as a result this fake dating relationship turns into a bit of a sex education sort of relationship as well. And of course once they start sort of sleeping together, then they are really going to start falling in love with each other as well. I found that these characters were very complex, but really fantastic people. This whole friendship group that Garrett has is also amazing. I've been loving all of the other books in this series as well, and I can't speak highly enough about it and how this book kind of ends, so I would definitely recommend. Okay, so next up I want to talk about Against a Wall by Cate C. Wells, and this is book 2 in the Stone Cook County series. This is a small town romance, so you'll be pleased to know no sports involved. Small town romance, enemies to lovers, and the hero in this one was a bully to our heroine during high school. We are following Glenna and Cash. So Cash is basically part of this very powerful family in the local community. There's a group of sort of families, as we often see in some of these sort of romances in small towns in America, where there's a group of families with surnames that get them extra status, right? So they're either chief of police, the lawyer, the mayor, or just rich business owners in town, and they seem to be able to control what's going on with everybody else. And Cash is part of this sort of wealthy sort of family, and he has obviously then got a lot of power and influence in the town as well. Now, growing up at school, Cash really fancied Glenna, but Glenna wasn't particularly interested in Cash, and as a result he used to pick on her terribly and bully her through school. Now, he didn't realise the extent of what he was doing or how much he was actually hurting her until much later when she kind of explained it to him, because for him it was just a bit of fun at school, but for her obviously it had far-reaching consequences, and as such, you know, she learned to really dislike Cash quite a lot because basically he was her bully. So this is the enemies to lovers side of it, where they really don't get on, and even into adulthood, Glenna kind of works in this coffee shop, and Cash constantly goes in and just makes her life a misery, but really he's still acting up as a bit of a teenage boy trying to get her attention. Now, he finally gets his chance because Glenna's father is a journalist, and he kind of like owns the local paper, and he's recently done a story that kind of exposed another powerful family in the town, and as a result some members of this family may end up going to prison. So of course, because they're so popular in town, they used to wield so much power, everybody is really against her father, and as a result kind of against her, and started to make her life a bit of a misery around town basically. However, Cash sees this and he really likes Glenna, so he basically suggests to her that they fake date each other, because if she fake dates him, if she dates him basically, the whole town will stop picking on her, because obviously if he's signing with her, he's part of this powerful family, then people will be nicer to her as well, and so she very kind of reluctantly agrees. Now, Cash very much comes across as not the most intelligent person in the room. He's quite you know, a simple guy, but he absolutely cares for Glenna so much. He does some really nice things for her, and when he realizes how his actions have affected her through his life, he really, like, you know, grovels, asks for forgiveness, very much changes his ways, and convinces her that, you know, he only ever did it because he was attracted to her, wanted to be with her. There was a bit of a misunderstanding about something that happened when they were kids, and once they've resolved that, they can move on, and their fake relationship turns into something more real. Next up then we have False Start by Kandi Steiner. This is book 5 in the Red Zone Rivals series. It's another sports romance, but this time it's American football. It's also a second chance, single mum, and there's no third act breakup in this one either. So in this one we're following Kyle and Madeline. Now, Kyle is a character from the first 4 books in this series, and if you've read them you'll know that Kyle was a bit of a troublemaker. He was the one that kind of, like, you know, no one particularly liked at first. He was really sort of narcissistic. He loved himself. He was always taking photos of himself, putting them on social media, and generally, you know, belittling other people around him, and he was a bit obnoxious. However, we always knew that there was more to Kyle than met the eye, and we also knew that we were eventually going to get his book. And by the time we get to his book, we've very much started to warm to him, and, you know, really want him to be a reformed character, if you like, and really welcome him into our hearts and into our arms. And this book really doesn't disappoint, because we find out so much more about Kyle, his story, why he acted the way he did, why he was the way he was, and this is in part because of our heroine Madeline. So Kyle and Madeline were childhood sweethearts. They really you know, loved each other. She was a couple of years older than him and was actually sort of technically his babysitter, but there was only 2 years between them. As teenagers, they had a relationship, but then something happens one night at a party, which means that their families end up not speaking to each other anymore, and as a result, her family moves away, and Carl and Madeline don't see each other from there. Now, both of them think the other person is sort of to blame for this. They don't understand why they haven't tried to stay in contact with each other, and they're kind of both left a little bit heartbroken and confused, but also blaming the other person, like they didn't want to be with them and they deliberately left them and didn't speak to each other. We find out more about what's going on there as well later. So as a result, Carl then, through the other books, has obviously had this sort of way about him where he just focuses on his football, focuses on himself, isn't interested in relationships with women like on a permanent basis. But at the end of book 4, all of the guys kind of graduate and they go off to their professional football careers, and Carl also goes away to be a professional football player. So he's in his rookie year, and he then needs a place to stay, and so he basically gets himself an estate agent essentially to help him find a house where he's recently moved to. And who should be this estate agent but Madeline, his ex-girlfriend. And at first she doesn't want to deal with him, because as soon as she sees him and recognises him, she's like, oh, I don't want to deal with him. But she is desperate for money, because by this point she is a divorcee, she's a single mum, and she's desperately trying to make ends meet. And so she really needs a sale of a house, particularly of the value that Kyle is going to buy, because he's going to buy quite an expensive property with the money he's making from the football, and she really needs the commission. So she very reluctantly agrees that she is going to you know, work with him and help him find a property. It's not too long before they start spending a bit more time together, and he starts to figure out that obviously, you know, she's got a child, she's got an ex-husband, and the ex-husband isn't particularly nice at all. In fact, he has been quite abusive to her in the past, and now he's trying to use intimidation techniques to either get her back or just kind of generally be cruel to her. And of course, when Carl sees this, he is only too happy to step up to the plate and defend Madeline against the husband, and even suggest that they kind of fake date and make it seem that they're dating each other to make the ex-husband sort of back off. In addition to that, Kyle needs a date to Clay's wedding, because by this point Clay and Gianna from book 2 from Blindside are getting married. Kyle's invited to the wedding, and he also needs a date to the wedding, and so he asks Madeline to go with him. And so this is kind of how their fake dating relationship kind of develops. Him, like I say, defending her against the ex-husband and just pretending that he's with her so that she has a bit of protection, and for him, he has a date to Clay's wedding. I absolutely loved it, like I say, and shed a couple of tears, I don't mind saying, and I really am looking forward to reading more from Kandi Steiner. So next up then, I want to talk about Roman by Melanie Moreland, and this is book 2 in the Men of the Falls series. This is a mafia romance, and we're following Roman and Effie. Now, in addition to this being a mafia romance, it's also forced proximity romance, and not strictly fake dating, but I'll say a fake engagement, and I'll explain more. Now, as mafia romances go, this is quite a mild, sweet mafia romance. Technically, Roman isn't in the mafia. His brother is the head of the mafia, so it's kind of a family business, but he's not directly in the day-to-day running. What he does is runs a series of casinos in Canada, but they use obviously the casinos for money laundering and for other sort of criminal kind of activity. So it's kind of like mafia adjacent, I'd say. He's not like kind of like the boss of this mafia group or anything, but his brother, like I say, is mafia. It obviously means though he has got, you know, bodyguards. He's got a best friend who will absolutely do anything for him, Aldo, who is the hero from book 1, and they're not afraid to use violence and weapons when necessary to you know, meet their goals. So at the start of this book, basically Roman meets Effie's sister, because Effie's sister is not a particularly nice woman at all, and she has borrowed a lot of money from Roman and hasn't paid it back, and because he's obviously a bit of a loan shark as well, and obviously around the gambling scene. So the sister comes to him and says, you know, I'm really, really sorry, I don't have the money to give you. Pretty much offers Roman her sister Effie. Roman is obviously not happy about this offer at all. He doesn't deal in women, obviously, or deal in the flesh, and he is absolutely outraged that a woman would offer her sister to pay off her own debts. Of course, so he absolutely says no and pretty much kicks her out of the office. But he gets a bad feeling about this, and he decides he's going to seek out Effie, and he goes to Effie to kind of warn her about the sister, and as a result he kind of gives her a card and said, if you need anything, if something happens, give me a call. And he goes away and kind of doesn't think anything of it, and then he kind of goes away, but he can't get Effie off his mind. She's a really pretty woman, he's very attracted to her, and he does start to worry about her safety, so kind of keeps a little eye on her. Now unfortunately his fears do come to fruition, because Effie's sister has a fantastic idea. She realised that Roman didn't want Effie for herself to pay off the debt, but she knows some other men who don't have the same sort of morals or scruples, shall we say, and so she does actually do a deal where she sells her sister to some bad men in exchange for cash, obviously, so she can pay Roman's debt off. So when she comes knocking on Roman's door and says, hey, sorry about that, here's the cash, Roman is then very, very suspicious about where she got the money, and again goes to track down Effie and sees that her flat has been completely ransacked. Now, lucky for Effie, the card that Roman gave her also has a tracking chip in it, and he's able to track her to a location in a bad part of town where she's been held in the basement by 2 thugs, basically, and he manages to rescue her from this situation. But he knows that she is not safe, so she can't go back to her own flat, so she's going to have to come and stay with him. But the bad guys have obviously paid money for her, so they're going to want Effie back for themselves. The sister by this point is in the wind, she's gone, we can't find her, but the bad guys want Effie, they've paid for the goods and they want her, and Roman is determined he's not going to hand her over. So he decides that they're going to have a fake engagement, ultimately to get married, so that these bad guys kind of step down, because obviously if she's engaged to Roman, then she'll be protected by him and his name, and the bad guys won't come after her, and so she refuses to get married to him, but she does agree to this fake engagement situation, so that people leave her alone. But of course they're going to be in close proximity together, and they're not going to stay fake engaged for too long. Next up then I have another mafia romance, and this is When He Desires by Gabrielle Sands, and this is book 1 in the Fallen God duet. So this is book 1, When He Desires, and book 2 is When He Takes. So this is a recent release. Book 2 has only just came out about 2 weeks ago when I'm filming this, but I absolutely loved it, and book 1 is definitely fake dating. This is a spin-off duet from the Fallen series that she did, but you don't need to read that series in order to read this one. I mean, it would be good if you did, but I haven't. I've only read the first book in the Fallen series. I do want to read the others, but I really, really wanted to read this duet because I thought it sounded really interesting. Now, all you need to know at the end of book 4 is that one of the characters has to fake his death, and he goes into hiding in a small town. And so this book is about that particular person, who is Nero, and he basically is now kind of like you know, has changed his identity, he's changed his name, he's now going under the name of Rowan. He lives in this small town, and he started a construction company there, so no longer part of the mafia. So this first book is, I would describe it as, you know, a sexy, funny, small town romance. It's next door neighbour, they end up as housemates because she has a fire in her house, and he ends up having to offer for her to stay with him, and then it turns into fake dating, until eventually, you know, things kind of spiral way out of control. So like I said, Nero, or Rowan, is our hero in this one, and he is fairly new to town, but like I say, he's recently started this construction company, and he ends up buying the house next door to where our heroine Blake is living. So Blake has inherited the house from her auntie. Her brother has kind of left town, so he's not in the picture, so she lives by herself, and she works at this diner. Now the person who owns the diner, and so is her boss, is also her ex-boyfriend, because she was dating this guy in town. Now, he was a fairly powerful person in town because he was the son of the mayor, so he's a bit of obnoxious. He is fairly attractive, but he knows it, and basically he was doing her a favour going out with her, you know, because he's so popular and she should be grateful. So when she finds him cheating on her and breaks up with him, he's absolutely outraged, because how dare she break up with him, and she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you, you were cheating on me. And he, like I say, continues to suggest that she's lucky that he would date her at all, and that she should just get over it and go back out with him. So he is pretty much like making her life a misery, and it also is a bit difficult because, like I say, he's also her boss as well, so not a great situation. So when Rowan / Nero comes to town, ends up living next door to her, he definitely takes a shine to her, really likes her, and starts to spend some time with her. They end up being housemates because there's a little fire in her house, which means she needs to move out, and because he is in construction, like I said, he basically says, come and live with me, and I will do up your house. And he offers to do this for free, and she doesn't understand at first why he's doing this, but we later find out it's because he was the one that started the fire, because he didn't want her to leave town, basically, and wanted her to have an excuse to stay around a bit longer. But he basically knows he needs to sort of justify this. Why would he do something for free? Why would he let her live with him and you know, repair her house and everything for free? So he basically tells her the reason is because he's got a bit of a bad reputation in town. He doesn't want this reputation to damage his business in any way, and therefore he wants to look like he's a stand-up guy, a member of the community, and if he dates her, then everyone in town will kind of like him and forgive him for some past transgressions that have happened. So she agrees to fake date him while living with him in order to, you know, help him out with his reputation, and she's just very grateful for a place to stay and for the fact that he's helping her out of this bad situation. Of course, the ex-boyfriend is not going to be happy about this at all, and he's going to start digging into Rowan's past, because he decides that, you know, who is this guy? He's just turned up in town, picked up my girl, I'm not happy about this, things don't add up, and so I'm going to start digging. And as a result, he digs a little bit too deeply, and, you know, Nero / Rowan's past is going to come back to haunt him, and, you know, things are going to be left on quite a big cliffhanger for this book until we go into book 2 of the duet, when we go back from being a small town romance to full on mafia mode, and by that point they're no longer fake dating. In fact, he forces her to marry him, so for the purposes of this video, I just recommend book 1, but if you read book 1, you're going to have to read book 2, and I highly recommend the duet as a whole as well. Okay, so the last book I'm going to talk about today is another book by Tomforde, and it's book 4 in her Windy City series, Play Along. So this is her most recent release, which I absolutely loved as well. No surprise then, this is another sports romance, but this time it's a baseball romance. Also a workplace romance, and then this one is not fake dating, it's not even a fake engagement, this one is a fake marriage. So we are following Kandi and Isaiah. So again, we've seen both of these characters in previous books in this series. Isaiah is actually the brother of Kai from Caught Up, and they are both in the same baseball team, and Kennedy is one of kind of like the physiotherapists for this baseball team. So in the other books, we've seen that Isaiah has really, you know, always been really flirty with Kennedy. He's always, you know, trying to get her to go out on a date with him, and Kennedy's always resisted, and we've very much thought that this relationship was definitely one-sided. until we get to play along, and we see right at the start of this book that there is more to their relationship than first met the eye. Kandi is quite a complex character. She grew up in a very privileged household, but she grew up with no love. So she came from a very wealthy family. Her parents expected great things from her, expected perfection basically, but showed no emotions, no affections towards her. And so for her whole life she was never even really hugged, or anyone told her that they loved her. As she grew up then, she trained to be a doctor, and actually she is medically trained to be an actual doctor, but her dream is to head up the medical team for a sports team. Meanwhile as well, she's forced into an engagement with this man because her father does not have any boys, and he is very much wanting her to marry this person who will take over his company when he decides to retire. And so she's not even given an opportunity to find love for herself and find a husband for herself. She's very much expected to marry the man that her parents want her to marry. She's not happy in this relationship though, and he's always really belittles her. She really struggles with intimacy and affection, and he very much, misuses this information to say very hurtful things and make her feel really, really kind of inadequate. So then when she applies for a job at this baseball team, and she actually gets the job, but when she gets there, the head of the medical team takes one look at her, sees that she's a woman, and decides that he can't possibly have a woman working for him. He basically says, "I'm sorry, the job is no longer available, you can't work here." And she was like, "Well, that's ridiculous. You said there was a vacancy. You even offered me the job, and now you're saying I can't have the job just because I'm a woman." And in the end, he relents and gives her a lesser position, basically. So she doesn't get the job that she's qualified to do, essentially, and she gets a lesser job. Now, she decides to take it anyway and stay and stick it out because she really, really wants to work in sports medicine, and she thinks this will be a great step up. And once she's proved herself, maybe she'll get promotion and she'll get the job that she should have. But her boss doesn't ever feel that way, and in fact he pushes her, makes her do more and more sort of demeaning tasks that are well below her education level, but she stoically continues to put up with it for a number of years. Now, like I say, the relationship between Isaiah and her goes back a long way because Isaiah actually overheard the original conversation with her and her boss, so he knows her secret. He knows that she's well overqualified for the role that she does, and that she's putting up with a lot of sexist behaviour and a lot of bad behaviour from her boss because she wants the job so much. Now, she has made Isaiah promise not to tell anyone, and he has kept this promise, but it doesn't mean that he's going to stay away from her because he really, really likes her and constantly encourages her to do better, to stand up for herself and all of that stuff. Now, at first, because he knows that she's engaged, he really doesn't take this relationship further than he should or that she's willing to. But later, she actually calls off the engagement because the man that she's supposed to marry actually ends up having an affair with her sister. And so basically then she is no longer engaged, obviously. And when Isaiah finds out she's no longer engaged, then all bets are off the table, and he decides that he's going to pursue her, and he continues to pursue her relentlessly, and she continues to say no. One night they both happen to be in Vegas. She is there, ironically, for her sister's hen do, her bachelorette party, because she's about to get married to, Kennedy's ex-fiance. And Isaiah is there to kind of celebrate the last sort of weekend before they go back to playing baseball for the summer with his teammates. So when they bump into each other in Vegas, she's had enough of this bachelorette party by now. She cannot stand her sister and really doesn't want to be there, but it's kind of like, putting up with it for appearance's sake. And so Isaiah can see this and says, "Hey, come with me, let's just go and have some fun together." And so they do, and they have an amazing time together in Vegas, and in fact get so drunk that they end up getting married. But of course, when they wake up the next day, they realise their mistake. Isaiah is really actually secretly very happy about it, but Kennedy is not, and she wants to get an annulment. But unfortunately for them, someone's taken a picture of them outside the chapel. It's now in the press, and so now they have to go and fess up to the manager of the team and to her boss. They are in fact now married, and so this becomes a fake marriage because now, in order to save her career, basically they're going to have to pretend that they wanted to get married, that this is a genuine marriage, at least until the season is finished and she can get herself a job on another team. And so Isaiah agrees to go along with this and help her out. And in fact, that's why it's called Play Along. It's kind of, let's play along. So like I said, this is not fake dating, this is not a fake engagement, this is in fact a fake marriage. And it's brilliant to see how Isaiah slowly but surely whittles down all of Kennedy's walls until she cannot help but fall under Isaiah's charms, because he is an extremely charming guy. So there we go, that's another 8 recommendations for you that either are fake dating, fake engagement or fake marriage. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. And if you have got any fake dating romance recommendations for me or for anyone else watching this video, please put them down in the comment section below and I'll be sure to check those out. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye. And this one is not fake dating, in fact it's and it's book 4 in her Windy City part of a duet, When He Desires and When He Takes. It's a fallen god. But she knows some other men who don't have the same but she knows some other men who are Roman didn't want her sister. I'm not but secretly has a bit of a flame for her. Ryan himself is kind of, you know, Ryan himself is very